going to move on to Tokyo, where the Olympics has kicked off with rugby sevens. We've already got some medals. The men's competition did finish. And it was Fiji again claiming gold. Their second ever gold medal. Their first ever coming the last time around when sevens was first introduced. Yeah. And it's like it was always a thing. It was always a gripe of ours that about the Olympics that it's like we're rugby fans. Like of course Fiji and the Islander thing. They're such uber athletes. Get them into my rugby team straight away. It's just that no particular Olympic sport seems to highlight what they're particularly good at until the sevens comes along.
That's it.
And they were awesome. They deserved their victory. They were very much the better team in the final. The final took place against New Zealand, who, credit to them, a much better showing than what they had 4 years ago. They were very disappointed with I think they had a loss or two, maybe two even in the group stage, and they met Fiji in the quarterfinals I think last year and fell victim to them at that point. So there was no place in the podium for them that time, but they secure silver. It was a justified one. They were really good throughout the tournament, but very much second best in that final. And Fiji just totally deserved it.
Oh yeah, and Fiji really they started off pretty, not great, and they had an opening kind of game where they struggled a little bit against Canada as well.
It was actually Japan pushed them close in their opening game,
and I think Canada as well. They only beat by 14.
Right.
So it was like it was not an ideal start, but then when they played Great Britain, they really did click it into gear. Yeah. And Jerry Tuwai, I mean, Ranraja actually, who we'd highlighted in the preview. He was a peripheral player, as it happens.
He came off the bench. He did secure a nice game-sealing try in that semi-final.
Yeah. But for the most part, it was the traditional sevens boys. But Jerry Tuwai was head and shoulders, I think, the best player in the competition. He was everywhere, delightful, mostly on offense, of course, where he eats. But he had some lovely defensive touches as well. Mm-hmm. But he was just everywhere, controlling play, dictating things, putting these talented class players in the right direction. Yeah. And I would also give a shout out to Tuivuoka, who is just a monster of a man, an absolute killer out there. And geez, you'd love to see him get a cut at the 15s game as well. But
he looks like he could handle the physicality anyway.
Oh, for sure. He could be another tigerish Fijian.
Or you could just stick around with these sevens boys and go for gold again.
That's it.
Go for the hat-trick.
Absolutely. They were a delight to watch, as they always are, and they were physical. They were more defensive this time around.
They were.
They added the offense was always there, and they were able to take tries when they needed them, but they weren't soft. They never gave you anything easy. Yeah. And that was really a telling factor.
They didn't switch off either. Whereas, like, even that in that final, the unfortunate play from the New Zealander over his own line. What was his name actually? The Kiwi had a very poor final, even though he'd had a very good tournament. He juggled the ball under his own Newstub,
Andrew Newstub,
and it was a good story. I was loving the comms on him. He used to be a painter or something, and he got the call late in life to come up and represent New Zealand. And he had been really good in some of the other games I'd seen, but he had a few clangers in the final.
Fijians did an absolute job on him. I enjoyed Nana Satoro and Regan Weir and a few others in the tournament. They were definitely worthy silver medalists. I'd also shout out Argentina. Fine showing from them.
They were awesome. They put I remember watching the All Blacks put 50 on South Korea and thinking like, geez, I can't remember ever seeing 50 scored in a sevens game, or certainly not recently. It's a lot. Yeah. And then sure, the Argentinians go and put 55 on them.
56
even
just
on
8-7.
Yeah, that being said, South Korea were pretty poor.
They were class though. They were hungry. They were brilliant at taking tries. They had a poor game against New Zealand in the pool stage, but outside of that, they were brilliant. There was like Argentina in full on cup mode.
Well, that game against the South Africans was their opus, because the South Africans impressed the hell out of me when I watched our opening game, our Irish Chargers getting absolutely mugged off by them. They did such homework on us and just did a job, and I was like, these are our medal contenders. And like, they were medalists last time, but the Argentinians with 6 men on that big pitch just defended them so well.
Early red card. They just held the ball, and the South Africans couldn't get a foothold, and they just played a really smart game, got to the extremities, managed the breakdown areas so well, and just the contact zone in general, and shocked the South Africans, who couldn't, just despite having the extra man, they seemed to expect things to happen for them, but it didn't, and Argentina went out and took the game.
They did.
And by the time the South Africans got a foothold, it was too late.
And they did the same again in the bronze medal match as well, having had their disappointing showing when they got knocked out of the gold medal race. Ultimately, like, they were seemed a little bit fatigued, probably after that Safa game and defending or playing with 6 for so long. But when it came time for the medal match of their own, the bronze medal one, they were much better than GB. Team GB had a decent tournament as well and looked a good team. They faded a little as it went on, and the Argentinians looked the more ferocious in that contest.
I honestly didn't think they were as good as I thought they might be. GB, ever since they got stuffed by Fiji in the opening round, and then from there it was definitely it was questionable.
It seems like they wilted a little. Like considering some of the showings in the group stages in their first 2 games as well, like they just didn't look like they had the same energy. Like Norton was good in the groups, and then he kind of was quieter as the tournament went on. It just didn't quite fall for them, and they ended up in the worst place of all in these Olympic Games, which is 4th.
Indeed, they did. Their highlight obviously was that game against the USA when the US took a 21-0 lead, and then they came back in the second half very dramatically. And it was wonderful television for everyone watching as well.
Good promotion for the game as well. That was a great. Like I've seen a few people just romancing a few of the games that have kind of got the eyeballs on, and that was definitely one of them, because that's part of what Rugby Sevens at the Olympics is all about, is just getting more eyeballs on the sport of rugby and putting on a good show. Yeah,
no question. It was that was a very good showing. That was probably one of the highlights of the whole tournament, where the semi-finals and final became a bit sort of tighter and less sort of dramatic, I suppose, in terms of the way the games played out. It looked like there was one side on top for most of it, even in that third place game.
Yeah,
the Brits definitely looked a bit sluggish, and guys like Lindsay Haig just didn't show what they had shown in seasons gone by, and looked a little slow and tired really, and they just didn't quite have the balance right, I don't think, and they probably didn't deserve the medal, where the 3 medalists
it was tough to argue. I think they were probably the best 3 teams. In the first couple of days I was fancying the Safas, but then the Safas got a number done on them by the Argentinians.
Argentina ended that game with 5.
That ended it.
So it was definitely a fun tournament. Lots of great games. I was a little gutted from our point of view about Ireland, who for my money are a very good team that didn't show up at all, and that was really it was disappointing, to be honest. They're a lot better than what they showed, and
I think that's
they probably allowed the pressure to get to them a little bit. They'd had more media attention over the past month than they'd had in the 5 or 6 years previous. And I mean, guys like poor old Jordan Conroy, who I really thought would seize the moment, was just dropping balls, and he must have turfed like 3 or 4 or 5 tries that he would have had otherwise. Then he just dropped the ball. He was out of sorts, and then he was missing tackles. That came against Kenya, where they needed to win by 7, and they raced to a 12-point lead and just melted. They spent the rest of the game on the Kenyan line, but just almost
everything.
Were fearful of crossing the line and seeing themselves into the quarterfinals, and in the end took off Terry Kennedy with 2 minutes to go, and then shipped a predictable try to cost them their place. And it was quite painful viewing from an Irish perspective, but not unfamiliar viewing. I mean, we're well versed at seeing our teams melt on the biggest stage.
Very well touted, very competitive teams that I'm sure they will show their quality over the series that they're now involved in.
They're a better team than all that.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll pop up somewhere like Hong Kong or so Texas or something, winning a series event, but it probably won't be Tokyo based on recent evidence. As much as I like Japan and everything they're about and watching their teams, doesn't seem our teams like playing there.
No,
unless it's our rowing team. But yeah, no. So it was disappointing from an Irish point of view that they just didn't quite seem to show what they were about. Whereas they did do that in the qualifying tournament a few weeks ago, which was probably didn't serve them that well, giving teams like South Africa such fresh tape on them to work their game plan in. But we didn't quite see what we had expected from our charges. But that is a side note entirely, because take nothing away from deserved and retained gold medalists Fiji, who are now just dominant in this Olympic Sevens era that we're in, and it's up to someone to dethrone them.
I'm delighted for them. Best team in the world, deserved gold medal. Well done, Fiji. Absolutely class. The women's sevens has also kicked off. You guys will have seen more of it than we will have had. There's more games overnight.
Had one day of games so far.
Interesting start. There's a few teams looking strong. New Zealand women always looking very good. The Australian women really flexed their muscles with a 48-0 win over Japan, where
that was very impressive.
Just bits of what they were doing were really good. Hunger on defense, speed off the line. Quality of passing was excellent. Really wide class passing off both hands from the Aussie women. They're gold medalists, and just given as well, and how in general how well the Aussie athletes seem to be going, I would certainly highlight them as a medal threat, if not a gold medal threat.
Up there, France putting 40 points on Brazil as well. French
Fiji.
Women I would not underestimate either. New Zealand women always thereabouts as well. Beating Kenya seem a bit out of it. Team GB are still in the mix. They did lose to New Zealand women, but they
had a
scraped
scare against
their
Russia.
way home against Russia. My God, they scarcely deserved it, but Russia pinged for time wasting of all things.
Yeah,
at
those
very
Russian
death.
women are pretty good as well. They're
are
good in the breakdown, and there's definitely there's definitely potential in that team as well. But those are the early favourites. But there's
Fiji
still
women
a long
out there
way to
as
go.
well. The Fiji women not to be written off to do the double, do what they didn't do 4 years ago, and make it 2 golds for them.
No question.
They did beat Canada's women, who are pretty decent as well.
They had
so
an
they're still in the
early
mix.
loss to France,
They
but
did.
they should be able to bounce back from that. The main of it will be decided, I believe, on Saturday. That's when the gold medals and such will be decided. So we'll have a look back on that next week. But the women's is still progressing, and you guys, as I say, will have seen more of it because there's more games to come overnight.
Yeah.
But an exciting start to the women's competition nonetheless, and looking forward to seeing that one develop as well as the
hopefully
sevens takes the global stage.
Hopefully it delivers like the lads one, because it's just very entertaining stuff, and I'm glad.
Hey, I'm biased. I'm watching a lot of Olympic stuff, and from my point of view, it's the best sport there. And I'm biased, but I find it's more interesting than the swimming and the rowing and the handball.
Yeah.
I think it wins.
Yeah,
that's my take. Rugby is king.
Yeah, well, that's definitely our take here on the Overlap Rugby podcast. Is that rugby is king. That little BMX racing racing game is pretty good.
Yeah, but sevens is better. Come on,
skateboarding's pretty good too.
Skateboarding.
That was the new one this year.
Get out of here with your skateboarding.
Gonna pivot into the Olympic podcast now that we're doing.
Get out of here with your skateboarding.
But
it's all about the sevens.
It is all about the sevens, and so far we have only Fiji and the All Blacks, or New Zealand and Argentina, a full Southern Hemisphere sweep in the men's, and it remains to be seen what becomes of the women's tournament as well. But exciting stuff in Tokyo.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to give it a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment down below as well. We really do want to hear your thoughts.